Welcome to a truly, truly stunning summer's morning at Magny-Cours in the heart of France. Yesterday we raced from day to night and we start all over again with a 10-minute qualifying session. It's going to be quick fire. My name is Bruce Jones. Alongside me I have John Watson. Plenty to play for here, John. It's hotting up in the championship.
Yes, it is, and what a gorgeous morning here at Magny-Cours. The light is sharp, the temperatures are low, but they will rise gradually. 13.8 ambient, tracked into 21.1, ideal for qualifying. But of course, last night, Bruce, we left the racetrack. Not only did the heavens open, but I think on the route back to the hotel there was a hurricane. Because there's about 3 dozen trees knocked down. Here is our 4.4 kilometre Magny-Cours circuit, 17 turns. First sector is the quicker sector, the aerodynamic sector. The middle bit, of course, we mentioned yesterday, is more technical. And up around 12, turns 12, 13 up into Chateau d'Eau, the scene of one of the major incidents in our nighttime race on Saturday evening.
Yeah, that's where Ben Green ended up in the gravel. He had been leading the race. It was very, very tight at the front. It's going to be the same today. And yesterday, the 10 minutes of qualifying, we had a red flag early on. We reduced it to 8.5 minutes of qualifying. And some of the front runners ended up way down in the pack. Will today tell the same story? And we're just hearing the news coming through right now. Yesterday's race winner, the 96 Rutronic Racing Porsche, has been added 5 seconds to its race time yesterday, which drops it down to 3rd place. And we'll show you what happened that caused the punishment that is now sitting on the shoulders. Patrick Niederhauser won't know about this. He is about to head off. But this is the pit stop time. Look, the yellow and blue Rutronic Porsche. Sven Muller out, Patrick Niederhauser climbing on board. All the regular strapping in, going underway. It's what happens next that is clearly what has resulted in a 5-second penalty that's dropped them from 1st to 3rd. Let's go racing as soon as that tyre is on. Lollipop up, down, bang on the roof, and a Ferrari coming straight across its path, John.
Yes, the Porsche, whether it was released or the driver took the option to go, but the 71 Ferrari, the AF Corsa car was coming in, and that was then the release that was deemed to be unsafe. So the penalty has been applied. Porsche won on the road. They didn't know about it. The results that we have, of course, are still the provisional results from last night. We'll probably then get an updated, confirmed results from the evening 1-hour race last night. And disappointment indeed for Rutronic, because they did a superb job on the racetrack. But of course, that release was very marginal, deemed on review to have been unsafe. And consequently, they get a 5-second time penalty added to their race time, and because the first 3 were covered by, 2.9 seconds, it drops them down to 3rd place overall.
And that means that Dries van Toor and Charles Weerts will be the drivers who came here leading the championship. It was very tight, only down to 4.5 points after the end of yesterday's race, but those margins will now have opened up again. But it's still small margins, and it will be exactly the same in qualifying this morning. We had the top 21 cars in this 32-car field within a second of pole position. You're dealing in tiny, tiny time increments, changing your position on the grid by several rows. So it's absolutely about getting track space. And for the drivers who did yesterday's qualifying, all they could do is watch on from the pit lane. It's turned from driver 2 to define the grid for this afternoon's race.
Yes, and the racetrack is much cooler than it was last night, much cooler than it was certainly during qualifying for last night's race. Track is also, I suspect, probably what we would describe as pretty green. The amount of rain that fell is basically about 10 minutes after the nighttime race finished. It just started to rain, and then it got heavier and heavier. So Charles Weerts will be behind the wheel for qualifying for this afternoon's race. Dries van Toor carried out that duty yesterday afternoon. So this is the car now that has been deemed to be the winning car from last night's event. Charles Weerts was behind the wheel when that car came across the start-finish line in 2nd place, and I think they probably went to bed thinking, well, we finished 2nd, got points for 2nd place. Critically, they're ahead of the 48 Mercedes, the Winward Racing man-filter team car. Lucas Auer and Maro Engel on board. That car was catching the 32 BMW towards the end of last night's 1-hour race, but now totally different game, new playing field, everything is different, all to play for.
All to play for. I've quickly done the maths. It means now that Van Toor and Weerts are 6.5 points clear of Auer and Engel. It's still very, very close. They came here with a 2-point margin. It has been extended. So disappointment for Rutronic Racing, but you just have to get your focus on what lies ahead. What lies ahead is only 10 minutes of qualifying around this circuit, and it's going to be really a case of not being tripped up. But John, that heavy rain last night, it was worse further south down towards Moulins, where we think a little tornado came through to take those trees down last night, but any vestige of rubber would have been stripped off the circuit.
Yeah, so the weight of the rain that fell, now whether it got to the racetrack, because we were not aware of any of these issues. We left the circuit about half an hour after the race finished. The racetrack was bone dry, but the rain was just falling lightly, but certainly further down the road towards our hotel was very much heavier.
Looking at the bright yellow and green Mamba livery, number 48 man filter Mercedes, it qualified only 11th yesterday. It wasn't that far off pole position in turn signs. It was half a second, but it was Lucas Auer's first visit to the circuit. But the driver on board now, Maro Engel, was an absolute star in the second half of the race. He knows it very well. They need to be on the first couple of rows, ideally on the front row. So that's exactly what the German is thinking about now, but he's got to get it done.
Yes, you can see everybody weaving around, trying to get temperature into the tyre, both in terms of the core temperature, the tread temperature, also the brake will contribute to that. So Maro Engel fires it out of turn 17, directly behind the 32 BMW, the declared winner of last night's race. Track limit abuses are being picked up left, right and centre all weekend. So if you get 4 wheels off, for example, coming out of the Grand Curve, then that will be, whatever the lap you complete, that time will be deleted. So in 10 minutes you make one error. That could see your best opportunity to get the best grid position you could want for. Just, it's gone. Charles Vert's gone quicker sector 1. That's now got to Maro Engel in sector 1, coming down to Adelaide Happen.
But the top handful of runners are making space for themselves on the circuit. Oh dear, we've got not one but 2 Come To You Racing Aston Martin.
Red flag.
Having rotated, red flag. Yesterday we had one early on, but this time we've only got 7 minutes and 44 seconds on the clock. So the cars will come into the pits while those 2 are cleared up. And then, of course, they'll restart. But it means effectively after that, John, they'll do their out lap. And they've probably only got one chance to really nail a flying lap.
And no driver-car pairing has recorded a timed lap. The clocks have stopped at 7 minutes and 44 seconds of this 10-minute session remaining. Now, you might call synchronized accidents between the 2 Come To You Aston Martins. Let's have a look and see if we can catch what was the reason for this.
Well, these are the ones returning.
They're the red flag.
So that you could see the cars all dropping their pace as the second the red flag came out. So 2 of the 4 Come To You Racing Aston Martins are still going. But I'll give you the list of the drivers on board those cars. Number 7 was Matthias Drudy, 11 James Jakes, Dante Rapanga, number 12, and Matisse Lismore. And number 12, looking at it there, that's Dante Rapanga, and the car in the background is that number 21, which is Matisse Lismont. So I'm afraid those 2 drivers have blotted their copybook. Can't see any clear damage.
It looks like left front and right front on respective cars.
So consternation down in the Come To You Racing garage there. They need to get those cars back. They need to keep their focus on the others, particularly Matthias Drudy. It was a car, the number 7 car, of course, took victory in the Spa 24 Hours, but it hasn't gone well for them at Magny-Cours as yet, and this was not what they wanted first thing on a Sunday morning.
Well, it's not for the team, the Come To You Racing Aston Martin team, but for everybody. There you can see on the 12, the left front is sitting down, and if you look on the car behind the 21, it's the right front. So somehow or other, the left front and the right front of these 2 cars we believe, we need to see if there's a replay of this, how they got into that situation. Unexpected. But literally, everybody was on an out lap, or they were beginning the first flying lap. Some of the cars had gone through sector 2, some had made it through sector 3, but that was really on their out lap. So the quick car here, the 32 BMW and the 48 Mercedes, were on flying laps, and they'd certainly recorded a time in sector 1, and the red flag came out as they went from sector 1 to sector 2.
Well, frustrating for all sorts of reasons for all sorts of drivers, but those 2 cars have done the good thing. Not only got themselves clear track, John. That was what they wanted, and they're both absolute top pro drivers in Francois Charvietz and Maro Engel, and they had done what they needed to do to then lay down the marker lap and then maybe potentially improve it next time around. But for those who are in traffic, clearly these 2 Come To You Racing Aston Martins got themselves into their own traffic. Let's listen to team radio coming up to find out what exactly was going on. And it's from the number 12 car.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what happened. I couldn't. They braked so early. The Aston and the Mercedes, I think they hit each other as well, and then they braked early, and I couldn't move out on time.
Copy.
That was the voice of the driver of car number 12 from Come To You Racing, the silver class, Dante Rapanga, who is moving away from the scene of the incident there, but you can imagine all the frustration within the team, John.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I mean, what can you say? Literally on your first out, or your out lap or your first flying lap in a 10-minute qualifying session, one might suggest, was that avoidable? Sitting here in our armchairs in the commentary booth, watching the TV, just seeing the same pictures you're receiving at home, we are only second guessing what may have occurred, but whatever it was, let's say, I think both drivers might want to go into the garage when they return, and heads hung low.
Well, whatever the incident was, all the other drivers are back in the pit lane waiting to go as soon as they can. The car that's lined up ready to be the first one out is Tracer Attempt to Racing's number 66 Audi. That's driven by Andrei Mukazov. He was a driver who really got caught out a few times yesterday. Sorry, I beg your pardon. It's the Liqui Moly car,
yes,
number 6,
Max
not
Hoffer.
66. So it's Max Hoffer, Austrian, who really came good right at the end of yesterday's race. And in the silver class, his car is sitting very well placed indeed in that category. So for Max Hoffer.
So session's going to be extended by a further 2 minutes. So we've now got 9 minutes and 44. So we've lost effectively, when the cars go back out on track, 16 seconds of a 10-minute session.
Okay, well, thank goodness they've added
Yes.
that back. And just to point out, actually, sorry, of course, Max Hoffer is leading the gold, not the silver class, sharing with Luca Engstler. But it's a case, again, of refocusing for all the drivers concerned. But I'm very, very pleased that the 2 minutes have been added on. So it's 9 minutes 44. So effectively, it makes it almost as it should have been. 10 minutes was the initial time we started with to be able to play with, but they've still got to nail it within that time. This car yesterday was under all sorts of pressure. Emil Fry Racing got into the fast lane before it was allowed to, was held back. All the other cars went out to qualify, and it had to go from the back. But then Ben Green delivered under what he described pressurised situations. And most certainly that he was under a huge amount of pressure, took the pole position. But I just want to go back, John, to yesterday. 21 cars within, well, 20 cars within a second of the pole time.
Yes, I mean, we've become accustomed to seeing such close qualifying times throughout this, over year upon year. And I mean, some circuits you do get a very close top 20, maybe even in some cases more than top 20. Magny-Cours is one of those racetracks. So we will see extremely tight qualifying once again. Whether we'll see the same suspects on the front row of the grid last night or yesterday, it was the 14 Ferrari and this car, the 991 Century Motorsport BMW, driven by Dan Harper. And it was actually Dan Harper behind the wheel in that first stint, who, going up into Chateau d'Eau, the turn 13, made a bit of a move up the inside, went inside the curb, got launched into the 14 Ferrari, sort of slammed the Ferrari off the racetrack, and that car then got a time penalty, which was added to its race at the end of when the checkered flag came out. So a lot was going on in the first half of the 1 hour sprint and in the second half.
Yeah, and yesterday what we had was a lot of bronze class cars near the front end of the grid, including, of course, Dan Harper on the outside of the front row. However, it's the bronze category driver, the bronze driver in these bronze cars that's going to be qualifying today. So they'll be back towards the rear end of the grid. But, of course, in bronze you can have your other driver can be anything from platinum rank down. But those higher ranked drivers are standing in the pit lane. It's the bronze drivers on board. So it's more likely we'll have all the pros at the front, the golds, the silvers, etc. The bronzes towards the rear. But you never know. If a bronze driver can deliver, keep it neat, keep it tidy, not get blocked by traffic, then there's a chance we'll have some of them some way up the order. Well,
it's incumbent on the bronze drivers to do the best they can. But remember, they're not necessarily looking for overall grid positions. What they're concerned about is those other competitors within that bronze category to be ahead of them in the grid. They could be in the middle of the grid, but as long as they're ahead of their competition, that's their goal. They've scored the goal, if you wish.
Yeah, 100% so. And bear in mind, this is the fourth of the 5 sprint rounds for 2024. And it's the second race here. Now,
I think we're going to repeat what we saw yesterday.
I do indeed. What happened yesterday, we mentioned it a short while ago. Ben Green pulled into the fast lane before he was entitled to do so. His Emil Fry Racing Ferrari was then held back until everyone else went. We've just seen Max Hoffer being moved from the fast lane out of the fast lane, and as the Aston Martin drivers from Come To You Racing walk back with their cars being put on the flatbed, he may too be held to the back.
Yeah, there's 2 Audis now going to be held, I think, because they've actually entered the fast lane before the instruction has gone. There we see the 2 of them, they're lining up. They will have to sit there and wait until the entire paddock or the entire pit lane has made its way on to the racetrack, at which point then they will be released. And it's just there we go. So the fast lane is now open, and we're now seeing the field making their way. And surprisingly or unsurprisingly, It's the 32 BMW Charles Fiat behind the wheel, and directly behind him, Mauro Engel in the 48 Mercedes.
Yeah, and the second of those Audis pulled out of the fast lane is Simon Gachet's car, the CSA Racing R8 LMS. So that's tucked in behind Max Hofer. Sit and wait. Gachet, I would have thought, would have... Well, there we have him, tucked away. Team WRT almost always seem to have their garage down towards pit exit. That really is a helping hand. A team that's entered the series this year, it started with the Endurance Series, but now racing, great to have them in the Sprint Series as well, is East Talent Racing. And Simon Riker's driving it now, but yesterday that qualified really well, up in 4th place in the hands of Christopher Haase. That's something that's a car that should be in the top 10. Let's wait and see.
Yes. I'm curious because we saw yesterday the 14 Ferrari getting pulled over and letting everybody go. I wonder, is it the driver who makes the decision, I'm going to get into the fast lane to be ahead of the field, or is that an instruction comes from the team? So if it comes from the team should know better. If the driver's been a bit nervy and twitchy and, oh, I've got to go, well, then that is the responsibility solely of the driver. But these two cars you see are going to have to sit and wait until the rest of the field, the 29 other cars, or was it 30 cars in fact, make their way onto the track. We've got 9 minutes and 29 seconds to go out of what was originally 10 minutes. Stopped at 7:44, add 2 minutes added. So we're almost back to where we were when the session got underway, 9:15-ish.
Yeah, the slate has been swept clean. Rutronic Racing, both of their cars ended up with 5-second penalties after yesterday's race going into the night. So today they'll certainly be watching their pit stops because both of them were for unsafe releases in the pit lane. It's down to tiny margins, getting things right, getting things wrong. Hopefully they will have learned the lesson, and hopefully everybody today can get a nice clean run in this qualifying session. Get the heat into the tyres, that's the first job. Get the heat into the brakes, keep the driver cool, and then make space to deliver your lap. But then I haven't mentioned those two words we join together so often, John, track and limits. We had so many cars losing lap times yesterday. I'm sure today will be the same story. I
would not be surprised, and of course again reflecting back to the track temperature, it's now at 14.8 Celsius. When we began, it was 1 degree cooler. So the track is very, very slowly picking up temperature. The sun is out, but the track itself has been probably washed. So there's that element of what we call greenness about the track surface. And because the ambient temperature, and of course sitting in the pit lane, the tyre themselves will lose temperature, they will lose pressure. And all those little details can add to a minor driving error where you get all 4 wheels over the demarcation white line, and especially coming out of turn 17, we will see at different times, just the Audi coming through the third of those 3 cars, all 4 wheels over the white line, then there's the red and white curving, and then the green beyond that.
The difference between a great driver and a good driver is the great driver can just add all those factors together and work out how hard to push and how soon. And Mauro Engel certainly got clear track ahead of him. Coming back in for a fresh set of Pirelli rubber is Charles Weers, the number 32 BMW, the championship leading car. It stretched its margin to 6.5 points. The championship chasing car is this one, number 48. And Mauro Engel has the playing field to himself. He's worked the position in the traffic. I'm sure he's got the tyres exactly on point. Wait to see what the first flying lap is. By the way, yesterday in hotter conditions, 1 minute 36.701 seconds was good for pole for Ben Green in the number 14 Emil Frey Racing Ferrari. Let's see what we can achieve this morning. Much cooler track conditions. Any rubber blown away, washed away last night. But looks as though it's a nice tidy lap thus far from Mauro Engel, as you would expect.
Yes, well, I think this is the first time these cars have been on track at this time of the day throughout the weekend. It did go momentarily purple, then it's gone to green, so others around that second sector looking to see who might have gone purple, nothing coming up.
Gilles Magnus has done a very good
Gilles
time
Magnus
in the Santa Audi, number 25. That was the car that was running, I think, wide in the background of one of the shots coming onto the start-finish straight. But Mauro Engel will lay down the marker. The final couple of corners very tight indeed. The right-left flick onto the start-finish straight. Keep the car off the curbing. Let's see what time is laid down by the German racer. 1 minute 36.862. That's just 0.16 of a second down off yesterday's pole. That's very good start. We've got a spinner somewhere, just trying to locate where that was. Oh dear, it's the Schumacher CLRT Porsche sitting sideways. Stefan Denoual. Will that lead to, let's hope,
it'll be a red flag. It will be a red flag, I'm sure. That's coming through out of Estoril into Grand Curb. Let's have a look and see there. We just get that back end stepped out, and all of a sudden there's no grip to keep the car, and He may actually be able to drive it out if he doesn't get too aggressive on the throttle, as we see the number 7 Aston Martin. And it's been a testing qualifying session 4. They come to you, and again a red flag. Bruce, you're quick on this.
Okay, and what we do have at that point is 4 drivers have set a flying lap. This could be really important for them. In fact, 3, one's just been taken away because the red flag would have been flown. So we've got Maro Engel on provisional pole. I'm getting way ahead of myself. We've got nearly 5 minutes 50 seconds on the clock still to run. 1 minute 36.86. Second place, Alex Arca. This is the car that started stone last yesterday. Could potentially, if things don't change, start second today, 1 minute 37.2. And then Constall Appalainen, the Emil Frey Racing Ferrari, that is third. The only 3 cars that have set good times, any times got them on the board before the red flag. The second red flag had come out. Hopefully that Schumacher CLRT Porsche can be removed quite quickly. It's only just in the gravel, just edged wide out of Grand Corps, got it wrong into Estoril, and flipped it round.
I would suggest that the reason why the car is in the gravel is because coming out of Estoril, which is the left-hand corner, which is in perfect conditions to be flat for these cars, but then you have to get out of the throttle, maybe go down 1 or 2 gears, depending, to make the cut into Grand Corps. And it was there that I would have said that the rear tyre temperature was not up to what I would call full operating, and that the back end just snapped very quickly. The opposite lock is applied, and then that just carries the car wider and wider. Of course, the outside of the corner is the dirtier part. The racing line is the clean part. So you can see the lighter grey there, which is the racing line. Then that very black line, that's a lot of the rubber from previous events that we've had here. And then beyond that, you're into, well, there's no grip at all.
So that sequence through Grand Corps into Estoril always catches people out, not just on the first lap of the race when they're jockeying for position, but particularly in quick-fire qualifying, particularly in cool conditions. And John, I think you explained that absolutely perfectly about the sort of dynamics of the corner. But for everyone else, the heat under the collar will be rising here because we already knew it was going to be quick-fire qualifying. When we started, we had 10 minutes. You've just got to get it right. Now we're going to restart here. Only 3 of the runners have a flying lap that has been recorded. 5 minutes 49 on the clock. When they get going, by the time they've all done their out lap, they really do only have 1 flying lap that's going to count. Well, they maybe just squeak. The first ones may just squeak.
They may get a couple. They need to get on with the program when they go out in their out lap. But of course, that's the point when maybe they're at most risk of getting caught out because the tyres and pressures will have dropped away, and you've got to be cautious. You can't just go out and nail it if you haven't got tyre temperature or tyre pressure. The Mad Panda has come in at sort of an odd angle. Now, whether they're going to rotate the car on those dollies and push it into the garage, I think that's what the intention is.
Right, well, the driver on board is a 16-year-old. I didn't make that up. 16-year-old Tom Callender. He was the driver who had the 4th flying lap recorded, but that was then taken away for exceeding track limits out of the final corner. So the young Dutch racer could have had an incredibly valuable lap, but he'll have learned a lesson, I am sure. Looking there at the Sky Tempesta for Racing Ferrari, Jonathan Hui will be the driver qualifying that today. It was Eddie Cheever's job yesterday, and showing he's still enjoying life there. Sitting second in the Bronze Championship. No, after yesterday's race when they didn't score a great deal. And victory going to Rob Collard and Sandy Mitchell. That's moved to the Collard and Mitchell Lamborghini into second place in the Bronze Cup. But maybe they're grasping at straws, all of them, because Dan Harper and Darren Lung are they've got a tidy lead. Actually, maybe they're not, because I tell you what, let's do the maths on that. Only 6.5 points clear, now I think about it. Right, good to see the Schumacher CLRT Porsche has been lifted and moved, frustratingly for not just the driver on board, Stefan Denouel, but also all the others. He only just edged into the gravel, couldn't get it back out onto terra firma, onto the tarmac. So they sit and wait. We enjoy the drone shots over the pit lane. I must say the drone has been such an evolution of camera work. It's great to see the race liveries. I can just imagine a teenage Jones would have loved all this in being a completist at looking at how the cars look from all angles.
You normally at ground level you see the graphics literally. You only ever see the side-on graphic. I know we're not talking about cars on racetrack, but looking at the 2 Garage 59 McLarens, I mean, just look at the complexity of the graphics on that car. And it's a work of art if you put it into that sort of context.
No, it really is. The next cars along after the Garage 159, Garage 59 McLarens are the Santalot racing cars, the 26 and 25 in silver and white. But if you're a livery designer, you must go, great, all my work is being shown. And then the craziest one, of course, is number 90. Oh, check your release there. That's Mad Panda Motorsport, all waiting, all anxious to get out. It looks though it's the the number 30.
Yep.
No, I tell you what, it's the 991 at the front, isn't it? It's Paradigm, that's the Century Motorsport car, and today it's Darren Lung who'll be qualifying that, looking to get himself to the front of the bronze class. He's leading it on points at the moment, but his margin 10.5 points. Sorry, 9.5 points.
Just the 48 sitting there, Maro Engel, and another set of tyres going on to that. We saw the 32 have a new set of tyres fitted, and Charles Vetch would have gone out and would have been on an out lap at the same point as the Porsche went off in Grand Curb. So his new set of tyres will have had a small heat cycle go through them, whereas the tyres that are going onto the 48 Mercedes, the Windward Racing Team Man Filter, Mercedes AMG GT3 Evo, and I'm out of breath saying all that, that got a brand new set of tyres, and others are going to do the same thing as well. So it's going to ebb and flow as to, now can Maro Engel get out on an out lap and then nail it on his first flying lap? Will he have sufficient tyre temperature, tyre pressure? And he would be in a pretty strong position right now compared to those that maybe are challengers for the front row of the grid to nail certainly a front row of the grid, if not a pole position.
Right, Sam DeHaan, in fact, is the driver of the car at the front of the pit exit. That's the silver class leader, very tidy lead, sharing with Callan Williams, the Australian racer Callan Williams, and they're waiting to get going. So everyone absolutely anxious here to get out for good reason or poor, but I think Maro Engel's in a very good position. He's one of 3 drivers who's got something on the board. John?
Just I was going to say, had a caustic comment in my ear saying this charge to the frontal is a bit like me trying to get to boarding on an aircraft. I like to be first on board. I'll get the elbows out when I'm in the queue in the priority line.
It's a work of beauty, but not always.
Well,
feathers and chickens flying, children flung out of the way.
Doesn't matter your age, you never lose your competitive spirit.
It is. If you watch out at an airport, it's a fantastic viewing. He gets smaller and smaller as John escapes into the distance. Work of art. But now the work of art is going to be what goes on out on the circuit. Can people get it right? Maro Engel, Alex Arca and Konsta Lappalainen, the 3 drivers who've got a time on the board. They are sitting pretty. That was a very impressive opening lap from Maro Engel. 1 minute 36.862 on a cool circuit. How low can we go? Can people do it without exceeding track limits? That's the big question.
And Bruce, that time that Maro Engel set, I think may have been on a set of tyres that had some mileage on it. How fresh they may have been, I don't know. But clearly the 48 car has had another set of tyres fitted to it. There's the 32, which also we saw after the first stop, he's got new tyres fitted. So it's what have we got? What time? 5 minutes to go, literally, as they all come down into Adelaide Airport.
Right, for all the drivers going around, they've got 2 things on their mind. It's getting heat into the tyres. It's also getting space in which to play. But then they're also looking, which of the drivers around me, are they going to be matching my pace, or have I got a bronze driver in front who's necessarily going to be a little bit slower? These things will be in their minds. The team manager would have told them who is near them, but they've got to make this lap work in heating everything up, in making space, and the next one is when they've got to deliver. But a lot of moving around, John. It's a cool morning. Track temp only 23.6 degrees.
Charles Vetch looking for that gap, and who is ahead of him? No, he's got ahead of everybody in the field, so he is in a very good position. Unfortunately, when he comes out of the final 2 turns onto pit straight, he may find a couple of cars that are late out of the pit lane making their way out on the inside of Estoril, but then they will join into Grand Curb, and that's not really what you want. So let's sit and watch what Charles Vetch does. Listen, flat through Estoril. Well, that's nearly as flat as you can get. Now, down the gears and runs out wide, then comes back to make the second apex through Grand Curb, lets the car run out, stays within track limit. And now your continuation of the exit of now coming up to Gulf, which is little more than you barely put any steering input into it at all. Then the short run down into the braking zone, into Adelaide. So swing it in, get the nose in on the throttle, straighten it up, and now there's a short run down to a very quick right-left in Nürburgring. A lot of curb gets used on the inside, a lot of curb gets used there. You see inside again, coming back for the second part. And then into the 180 degrees. This is a frustrating corner, a myriad of options and choices to how you take it. But a late apex for Charles Vetch, runs the curb just on the exit now. The run, slight incline through a sequence of sort of very shallow curves. Now coming into Imola, this is a bigger challenge. Down the gear, then watch on the outside. Don't get too far out here. Get on into the penultimate corner, almost Chateau d'Eau at the top, the highest part of the circuit. Good exit for Charles Weerts. Pulls the gears, running downhill, and then the final big break before you complete the lap to come into Virage du Lycée. Don't run too wide here, be careful, and then ultimately on the exit of this right-left, don't get too far. He's okay. So should be a good lap from Charles Weerts. Comes across the line.
And he slots one in.
Yeah,
what goes faster? It's 1 minute 36.533. It was a very good lap. He's got time actually to squeak it in 2 more, but most of the field will only have time for 1 more lap. We've only got 2 minutes 15. Those at the back of the tail of this run will have time just for 1 more flying lap. But the front runners have 2, and someone who also went very well, Ivan Klimenko, top of the silver class, only 0.3 of a second off pole.
Thierry Vermeulen has gone quicker again than Weerts. He's gone a tenth, just under a tenth of a second quicker. So it is the 69 now. Matteo Drudi in the Aston Martin. So it's going to be almost by the pro car coming across. We're going to see changes. So Drudi has gone to the top of the timing. Very quick lap, 1:36.1. Mad Panda again.
And it's Estoril. It's Estoril. He's gone through Grand Corps, and it's looped around. Tom Callender was the driver who had got a time on the board, 1 of 4 in that first part of the session, had it taken away, and now, dearie me, we've got...
well, it'll be a yellow flag in that zone, so you must not go through there quicker than any previous occasion. So we're going to see, will they let this run with just less, well, coming up to a minute to go. I suspect that that's what's going to happen, but I would assume that the Sector 1 has got a yellow flag, so I doubt we will see any significant improvements, but we're going to have a very interesting grid if that is the case, because Maro Engel currently only 8th. But he may be on his lap. I'm looking to see where Maro Engels. He's got green, 2 greens, and Jules Gounod behind and directly behind in 10th has gone purple.
Maro Engels goes top. 1 minute 36.035. Just gets ahead of Matteo Drudi. So it worked for him the first the second bite of the cherry. The third bite of the cherry, he's done better still. He could have been caught out there, but again, using that experience, he works his way in the traffic. Constantine also had a lap on the board. He's improved to second place ahead of Matteo Drudi. Just need to correct myself. I've been describing Tom Callender as Dutch. I was mainly talking about him being 16-year-old. He's German. Slap on the wrist for me. Quite right.
Jules Gounod, quickest overall. Maro Engels been eclipsed in the first driver to get into the 1 minute 35s by almost half a second. Stellar lap from Jules Gounod. That was a car that we saw start almost towards the back of the field last night. Max Gertz did the qualifying yesterday, didn't find clear track, didn't get a good run. Think he maybe lost the time. So now it's the number 9. The Boutsen VDS Mercedes showing its true form. Yeah, it set the fastest lap, as you said, in last night's race, but it was way down the order. It didn't really go anywhere, and then Jules Gounod got on board in the second half of the race and made it fly. Checkered flag is a flying, but a lot of drivers still able to complete this flying lap. Will it change things at the front? Tom Gamble has suddenly given McLaren the first reason to smile for a long time. 0.135 of a second off pole position, so great lap from the young British driver. Jules Gounod on top at the moment. Gamble second, Engel third. So it's Mercedes, McLaren, Mercedes. Best of the Ferraris, Constantine. Are we going to have a further lap being dropped in by Maro Engel? He's certainly flying, and Tom Gamble's going faster still. Maro Engel drives into the pits. I think that is it for him. But Matteo Drudi, a while ago, was on pole position. Now his time has tumbled down to 5th overall. That is how fast things were changing. Wait to see Tom Gamble if he gets through second and third sectors. There he is. I mean, he's just fractionally down, but overall, net, he's up. He's got to contend with the Aston Martin. Now that's going to take away some of his pace, and that will be a disappointment for Garage 59, because they would have loved to have had their car on pole position. But that challenge is probably going to disappear. He's not going to be able to get clear the Aston, and I wouldn't be surprised if Tom Gamble just drives into the pit lane, because there's nothing to be achieved. And that's what he does. No, exactly. So it's James Jakes just in front of him, goes through to complete a lap, goes into 16th place. But that was a great lap from Tom Gamble, the lap before. But again, to show even more pace at the start of that lap, shows them sitting pretty right. Bronze class leader, Darren Lung, down in 27th position. Can he improve? He's one of only a handful of drivers still out on the track. Of course, he'd love to improve, but at the moment, he's sitting down in about 5th position in class. He goes up 6 places to 21st. So he does.
So that puts him 4th in class. That puts him right in the hunt with 3 other bronze class cars right ahead of him. So there was a quick fire session with a couple of interruptions, but at the end it was Jules Gounon who finally got a reason to smile, showing with Maxi Gertz. Maxi qualified way down towards the tail yesterday on the 14th row of the grid, but today far better for the Boots and VDS team.
Just looking down, what we have is a Mercedes on pole, a McLaren alongside another Mercedes 2nd row, Audi 2nd row, Ferrari 3rd row, Aston Martin, and then the number 99 Audi in 7th and Thierry Vermeulen in 8th. So a real mix of all the brands here this weekend. But what is missing from that group are, where are the Porsche? Where are the 96 and 97 Porsche? The 97 is down in 19th, and I can't see where the 96 car is on our timing and scoring. Patrick Nida hasn't recorded a time. Talk about that one on the road, but was got penalised 5 seconds for a non-safe release, hasn't recorded a flying lap.
Just looking up and down the order to see whether times were taken away for exceeding track limits. Talk about, they went home happy last night with the victory in the bag, came in this morning, had a 5-second penalty, dropped them to 3rd, and now they'll be starting at the very, very last row of this 32-car grid. But for Boots and VDS, delight there. Yesterday was not a good day for the team, but then Jules Gounon did show there was pace in the car, and he got it right today, but so many front runners got a bit tripped up in that stop-start session, and Charles Weerts ended up at the championship leader, ended up down in 9th position. They started 6th yesterday, got through to 3rd, and then eventually won the race. However, today it's Boots and VDS with all the smiles.
Well, the car that's just put itself on pole position there is Jules Gounon. That car is was 19th overall.
Well, let's go and hear from our pole sitter, Jules Gounon, with Antonio.
Jules, congratulations. That was a brilliant lap in a very disrupted session. How did you manage to get a clean lap in?
Well, I got a bit lucky. Wow, this season is so hard for me. We have been struggling so much. Yesterday we qualified P27. The boys, they work until 3 a.m. changing dampers, splitters, everything on the car. And to make a pole position is for them, for Boutsen. First pole overall for them. And for me, it's a big relief after a very difficult season.
Hopefully this will mark a change in your chances this season. Congratulations, winner of our Rover Pole Position Award.
Well, fantastic job and deserved winner of the Rover Pole Position Award, Jules Gounon. But to do it in a... Look at that. When that is what it means, that yes.
Yeah, that was a human effort. I mean, what Gounon did, a lap of 1 minute 35.5, by far and away the quickest lap we have seen over the weekend. Thoroughly deserved.
Chased very hard by Tom Gamble, who took 2nd place on the grid for this afternoon's race for the Garage 59 McLaren. Maro Engel, rock solid in 3rd position, championship challenger, but he's 6 positions ahead of the championship leader, which is Charles Weerts, down in Wasmite, 8th place now. But so we've got such a fantastic mixture of cars there, John. Mercedes, McLaren, Mercedes, Audi, Ferrari, Aston Martin. The mix is there, and the best of the BMWs in 8th overall. That's the championship leading car, just under a second down on pole. The time's more split today because the qualifying session was more interrupted. They basically didn't get as many flying laps as they would have liked with those 2 red flags, but we got a really mixed pattern. Top in the bronze, in the gold class is Max Hofer, 4th overall. Top in silver, Ivan Klemenko, who looked really good today for Santalot Racing, qualifying in 9th position. And top of the bronzes was Miguel Ramos, so a double celebration for Garage 59. He's 18th, and it's a real cluster of bronze drivers together, so a lot to play for. And this afternoon's race, 1 hour, driver change in the middle. It's going to be an epic.
It's going to be, you've got a slightly different sort of grid, and maybe not a less predictable grid, but it's a real mixed up grid. There's the Porsche we saw going off midway through the session, just literally, I think, lack of temperature in the tyres. And once the traction was lost in the car, just the momentum and pendulum effect and whatever else took over. 69 Ferrari Thierry Vermeulen, he ended up actually 7th overall. At one point that car was quickest in the session that was very, fractured, broken, the 48. And there Tom Gamble, great run indeed for Garage 59, getting some pleasure. I mean, they are within a 10th and a bit of a second of taking pole position from Jules Gounon. So I think a lot of happiness will be down in Garage 59, both in terms of the bronze position for Miguel Ramos, but for Tom Gamble putting it onto the front row of the grid for the race proper.
No, really strong. So that was a stop-start session, but it was about getting it all right. 2 red flags, but Jules Gounon got it right at the end for Boots and VDS. He'll be starting this afternoon from pole. That's goodbye from me and goodbye from John Watson.